I had a subscriber reach out to me recently asking about my take on disassociation, because I've mentioned on the channel a few times that that's something that I've gone through and have been healing from. So I think I'm going to take that into a more broader sense and talking about processing trauma, and we'll see how that goes. Now, I should say it right off the bat, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a trained professional, I'm not even really your friend. If you need help, you should go seek it, and this video probably is not a good replacement for that. Now that I have that said, I can get on with the video. A lot of my early childhood life and even some of my early teenage years are kind of lost to my memory. I don't really have a whole lot of memories from those times, mainly because of something called disassociation, which is basically where you kind of like zone out and you just have like blank spots in your memory because you become numb to everything around you. That's a really gross generalization of disassociation, by the way. Again, not a therapist, not a psychologist, not a professional. What's interesting is that you kind of float through life during those periods, and you're not really experiencing everything the way that everybody else does. See, it's kind of a passive response to trauma. Whenever your brain can no longer handle these stresses around it, it kind of shuts off to protect itself, and in doing so, you have a lot of blank spots in your memory. Now, about 6 to 8 months ago maybe, I started getting memories back, and instead of what I normally did, which was just push it back down or repress it, I just started letting myself reflect on those memories and process them. And through that experience, I've become a happier, healthier, more weightless person. You see, whenever you have a lot of traumas and strife from your past weighing down on you, it's really hard to take a step forward in life. But whenever you get the chance to let go of those things through the process of processing your emotions, accepting that they happened, understanding that you can't change the past, and focusing on your future, it starts to get a little bit easier to take another step forward, and then another step, and then all of a sudden, as we talked about on the channel, momentum starts to carry you, and it becomes a lot easier to keep that momentum once you've had a really good head start, once you've really started pushing forward. But getting to that process is really hard. Learning how to process your trauma is not an easy task. People can spend their entire lives trying to get over some incredibly traumatic things that happen to them in their lives. And obviously not every single trauma is created equal. But that doesn't mean that if you have a lesser form that you're invalid. Everybody has their own struggles that they go through in life. And sure, my childhood could have been substantially worse than what it was. That doesn't mean that my experiences are invalid and that I don't have a right to have been depressed or have to have felt traumatized from those experiences. I did. That's the reality of my situation. And I can either sit here and lament the fact that my life didn't go how it should have as a kid, or as an adult, I can become a late bloomer and become successful and become happy, even if I did lose about 2 decades of my life to that trauma and depression. Processing trauma is not going to be the same for every single person. The advice that I give and the insight that I have from my experiences may not necessarily apply to you, and that's okay, because it doesn't have to for the sake of this video. The entire idea is to communicate that you can go through some pretty horrific shit, and you can actually push forward from it. That it is possible to move past some of your negative experiences and to try to climb your way up from the pits of despair that you may have accidentally had fallen into due to things that are completely outside of your control. I didn't get to choose who my parents were whenever I was born. I didn't get to choose who my family were. I didn't get to choose my socioeconomic status. I didn't get to choose the friends that I had, the experiences that I had. A lot of that is very much determined for us whenever we're in our early childhood phases. We don't really have a lot of autonomy as children. What defines who we are as people, though, aren't those experiences. Sure, that can influence where we end up in life as adults, but what really determines what our happiness is and what determines who we are as individuals is what we do whenever we have the ability to choose our circumstances. Now, I can't magically make $10,000 appear in my bank account. I can't magically give myself an education. What I can do is change my attitude towards those past traumas and look at them not just as things that happened that I'm depressed about and that I regret that happened to me, but I can look at them as lessons, as building blocks towards the foundation of my future growth. I had some dumb stuff happen in my life, and some of the things were in my control. A lot of them weren't in my control. So I have to take those experiences as they were, learn the lessons from those experiences, and try to apply those lessons to make my life even better. Now, it doesn't mean that you have an advantage if you had those traumatic experiences. All it means is that earlier on, you had to deal with things that other people may not have to deal with until later in their lives. And if you can adapt to that, you may learn those lessons a little bit earlier, which can definitely help. But of course, you've also been weighed down by those experiences, which may have slowed you down earlier on as well. I think all things being equal, we all have an equal opportunity for growth and development in life, but where you actually get to see that growth and development depends largely on the circumstances around you. So this isn't a tutorial. This isn't a how-to guide in processing trauma, because it would be incredibly irresponsible for me to even try to make that kind of video. All I can do is sit here and tell you to your face that's looking at the screen that yes, your emotions are valid. Experiencing those negative things was awful. You didn't deserve it. A lot of the things that happened to you were out of your control, and that's okay. A lot of things in life are out of our control. It's not fair. It's not right. But it happened. So we can sit here together, and you can be depressed and sad, and that's valid, because I think that mourning the loss of a certain period of your life to trauma is acceptable. I think that's something that's very normal for us humans to do. But whenever there's a point in your life where you become frustrated with the position that you're in, whenever you realize that you're not happy with drowning in your sorrow, there's going to be a point where you have to take that first step. And it sucks because although you can get help, nobody can really force you to take that step other than you. But once you decide that you want to take that first step, what you really have to do is look back at those experiences for what they really were. You have to accept that they happened, and you have to take a step towards healing. Now, what that healing looked like could be completely different depending on what you went through and who you are as a person. For me, it was forgiving myself for mistakes that I made, choices that I made. It was accepting the fact that I had a shitty upbringing. And then it was to make the active decision to not emulate those experiences from a certain side of my family, to not be like them, not become like them, not let the cycle of abuse in that family to determine who I become, and make active, very specific efforts towards being kind to other people, to try to uplift them. And through those experiences and proving to myself that I was capable of doing good in the world, I was able to take that first step confidently towards healing, knowing that I hadn't been completely ruined in my ability to do good for the world. Every step I've taken after that first step has been a struggle. Learning how to be happy. Learning how to accept that other people do actually want to be in my life and that they actively want to see me be happy. That seems like a weird concept, that someone can not feel worthy of being loved, but that was a mentality I had for the longest time. In fact, I even self-sabotaged relationships because I was so afraid of the emotional attachment and the responsibility that attachment could bring. And I was so afraid of hurting those people that I would actually push them away, which subsequently actually did end up hurting them. And I ended up becoming the thing that I feared that I would become. Today I took another step. I got a gym membership. And that may seem like a small step, but for me, it makes a world of difference. It proves to myself that I want to be better, that I want to feel better, that I want to do better, and that I believe that I deserve happiness, and that I deserve to be healthy, and that I deserve to have a long, healthy life. That was hard for me to do, and it may be easier for other people. And it's just a really small example in the grand scheme of things, but it shows that there has been growth in my life over the past few years, that I actively do want to become a better, healthier person. And that's everything to me. It shows the momentum has carried me up to this point. That because of all the steps that I took before this day, I was able to make it to this point. And because I made it to this point, I get to take another step, and another step, and another step. And someday, I can be a completely whole person. I may not be today. I may not even be tomorrow. But years down the line, I can look back on all of my experiences and think to myself, I've survived. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It wasn't as organized as it could have been. But I think that discussions like this are more genuine when they come from stream of consciousness instead of having bullet points trying to discuss very specific attributes of what I experienced. There may come a day where I make a video maybe going into more detail about the experiences that I went through and how I've overcome them. But today is not that day. I don't think that I'm ready to be able to talk about that as specifically as some people may want me to on this channel. If you guys enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like. I would appreciate that a lot. If you want to see more, subscribe. A lot of people who watch me aren't actually subscribed. It's free to do so. It's free to undo it as well. So give it a shot. You may end up liking what you see. Do not forget to keep it casual.